I think I do. I better check. What time is it? It's 3 minutes.
I'll keep them engaged.
Maybe go find cigarette. He missed the cat.
Where are the cigarettes?
If you're looking for your coffee cup, it's near the coffee.
Let me get this straight.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, David. How are you?
Lousy. How are you?
Why are you lousy?
Yeah, why are you lousy? Aside from the fact that it's Monday.
No, Mondays don't disappoint me. I never, well, I guess when I was in school, I really hated Mondays.
Exactly.
You're still at school.
Yeah.
Yes, he's in school. He's waiting for the rabbi to come teach the class.
Right. It's true. It's true.
My
Just
parents-
a warning though about tonight. It's supposed to snow. I'm staying home.
Oh, there's no doubt about that with me. I was going to say, okay, some people are afraid of heights. That's Craig. Okay, very afraid. Some
So am I.
people can't parallel park. That's Roberta. Some people, wait, I had something else. I don't know. Now, and then there's a person who's afraid of snow, and that's me. Sorry. Now, Liz might be the well-adjusted one here, but oh well. Yeah.
Well, I'm not afraid
yeah.
of snow. I am afraid of heights.
Really?
I'm terrible at heights. I get woozy, I get dizzy. It's terrible.
Can you
I
walk down
can't
a flight?
walk next to the railing at the mall if it's the second level. I have to be all the way in close to the stores.
Huh. I see.
And I don't mind driving in bad weather. However, under any snow, I won't drive if I don't have to when it's snowing. But under that snow, there's black ice.
That's right.
That is a no-no.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Can you walk down a flight of stairs?
Sure.
Yes, I can walk up and down a flight of stairs as long as there's a wall somewhere.
What about a rail?
In the house, yes. I have a railing. Well, I have a wall, a half wall and a railing.
What if you're in a public place, but it doesn't have any railings on the side?
That's
If there's a wall on one side, I'm okay. I don't have a problem.
right.
Yeah.
But if there's no walls, I'll take the elevator.
Huh.
And if there's no elevator,
I'm
who
stuck.
were we just talking to? You go bump, bump, bumpity, bump, bump, bump.
Oh, it was Craig. He couldn't get down Betsy's
Yes,
stairs.
Craig
Right.
couldn't get down the stairs at Betsy and Joey's.
Right. He had to go down on his tush.
Me too.
Good morning,
Anyway.
Rabbi Karsh.
Hi, Rabbi Kurt.
David,
Hello,
did you
Rabbi.
say, did you just say me too, David?
Yes, he did.
You went down. That's how you went down?
Always.
Could somebody
Oh.
video that?
Forget it.
Always.
We'd like a
Nobody's
video.
gonna video it for you.
I would like to see a video of it.
There are times of great embarrassment, but there's the necessity
Yes,
of getting from one
you're
place
right.
to the other.
You have to be shmartem ma'odis nafsho seichem. You have to guard your life very much.
Yes, but whatever. I guess it's more tolerated these days than than it used in the old days.
You should have seen, we were in Toronto and there was a fire alarm that went off in the hotel. You should have seen me getting him down the stairs. I practically carried him down the stairs, but we did it. And we were on, high flight. So anyway, okay.
Wait, can I just ask one, question we probably answered? Is it considered to be a violation of lashon hara if I'm speaking about a goy?
Whether I remember this coming up, I do not remember the answer to that. I'm going to just quickly check. But even if technically it would be, I think everybody would consider it to be bad character. Even if it was for some reason technically permissible, I think everybody would consider it to be bad character. But one second here. There are so many different mitzvahs, both positive and negative, associated with lashon hara. So you'd really have to go, like, there might be some of them, like not causing suffering to, a fellow. So what we call onas dvarim. So that one, you might say, is specifically talking about Jews. One of the classic examples of if somebody converted, that you're not supposed to speak of their previous life in a negative way to them. So that's onas dvarim. But then there's then it's lo selech rachel. I think the rachilus is also mentioned amongst your nation. But there's 30 different mitzvahs. Let's just see. Is it permissible to speak lashon hara? About,
especially in the case when it's true.
yeah, lashon hara. In other words, what we call lashon hara. What we find is that you're not supposed to speak to another. You're not supposed to say something nice about a Gentile to another Jew.
You're forbidden.
Right. Now there, it might only be referring to idolaters.
Right.
But still, so you don't even have much choice, except you could just decide not to talk about people.
Oh well, we'll just
See here, the Radal and Osnadaber recommend avoiding such speech, especially for reasons of Darkei Shalom. The Chavetz Chaim also emphasizes that if the speech will be heard by non-Jews or cause a desecration of God's name, it can be forbidden due to those broader concerns, even if not formally a breach of lashon hara. Let's just see, aish.com. Every human being, this is Rabbi Meir Bayer, July 30th, 2024. Every human being, Jew and non-Jew alike, deserves to be treated with kindness and respect and has the ability to use their free will to create an eternal relationship with God. The Talmud in Gittin 62a writes one should address non-Jews with the Hebrew term shalom, one of God's names, meaning we should bless a non-Jew with God's name when greeting him. The Talmud in Brachos teaches that one who sees a non-Jewish scholar of note should recite the blessing, "Blessed are you, God, who grants wisdom to flesh and blood." The Talmud dictates that one should arise for an elderly non-Jew and show them respect. Jews are mandated to give charity to non-Jews, visit their sick, and assist in burying them. Gittin 61a. Judaism requires Jews to treat non-Jews with kindness and decency. Furthermore, Judaism does not believe that only Jews are capable of achieving a connection with the divine. Judaism maintains that any human being who leads a good and moral life achieves a relationship connection to God. Non-Jews can attain a portion in the world to come, Sanhedrin 105a, through their observance of the Noahide laws, which are a universal code of ethics mandated for all of mankind. Ramosha Chaim Luzzatto, the great 18th century Kabbalist and ethicist, writes in his philosophical work, The Way of God, Derech Hashem, man is unique because he possesses free will. Therefore, a quality is found in man that doesn't exist in any other creatures, namely, his actions are repaid measure for measure. This reward is divided into parts, one in this world and another in the world to come. The choices of all human beings, Jew and non-Jew alike, are predicated by personal choice rather than instinct. Since they determine their moral and ethical behavior, the subsequent reward that follows positive choices is earned. That's Derech Hashem. Judaism views free will as being the result of a tension between the base impulses of a person and a person's innate spiritual reality or one's soul. Every person possesses a lofty soul. That is, let's just see here. That is number 5, Tosfos Avodah Zarah 5a. Tosfos Avodah Zarah 5a. Because there is a distinction made in Hasidic texts about what they call a divine soul and an animal soul. But here they're quoting Tosfos as saying, everybody, let's just get the exact quote here. Every person possesses a lofty human soul and has free will, which gives him the ability to obtain a portion of the world to come. The Medrash Tanit Velio Rabbah sums up this idea with the statement, whether Jew or non-Jew, man or woman, slave or maidservant, everything is according to their actions, meaning lineage and social status play no role in one's spiritual standing. Regarding the Messianic era, the Talmud in Psachim 68a and the Medrash, Bereshis Rabbah 26:2, are clear that righteous non-Jews are participants. There are a number of quotes from the Talmud which seems to disparage non-Jews. These are often misquotations or passages whose simplistic reading may mistakenly convey the opposite of their true meaning. Let's quote a few examples. The Talmud writes that if a Jewish-owned cow gores the cow of a non-Jew, the Jew is not liable for damages, whereas if a cow owned by a non-Jew gores the cow of a Jew, the non-Jew is liable. This seems to indicate a Jew doesn't need to respect the property of non-Jews. In fact, the opposite is the case. Meiri writes this must be referring only to societies that have no respect for law and order and have no respect for the possessions of others. Such societies allow their members to damage the property of others without repercussion. Therefore, we're entitled to punitively treat them this way to force them to stop this behavior. This is a unique law in dealing with a specific case and in no way a general way to treat non-Jews. That's the Meiri. Rav Shimon Schwab gives a pithy summary of the honesty a Jew must have when dealing with non-Jews. Those who make the headlines through deceit and swindle and smuggling and forging, defrauding the government and the public, no matter how devout they are in their outward appearance, have the blood of the Jewish people on their hands. Stealing from a non-Jew is more severe than stealing from a Jew. For whoever is guilty of the former has no atonement, should he die without repenting. If he repents, then his death would be a atonement because of Chil Hashem involved. So it is a Hillel Hashem to steal from a non-Jew, even though it's possible that there are different rules as far when it comes to stealing from Jews or non-Jews. But it's definitely a Chil Hashem, and that's the worst, pretty much the worst thing a person could do. Our rabbis have gone on record, including those who lie or steal from Gentiles, among those who are desecrators of God, for they provoke non-Jews to say, there's no Torah within Israel. Liars, swindlers, thieves who appear to be observant Jews are actually considered as if they proclaim there is no Torah in Israel. For the Torah instructs the Jewish people not to commit dishonest acts, and they, God forbid, put the lie to the command. Should they actually adhere to this directive, then the greatest sanctification of God in this respect would result. Another misleading statement is found in the Gemara in Yevamos 61a. You, the Jewish people, are called Odom, whereas non-Jews are not called Odom. This seems to suggest that the Torah views non-Jews as being subhuman. Yet this can't be. The Talmud asks, from where do we know that a Gentile who toils in Torah is analogous to a high priest? The verse says, you shall guard my statutes and laws, for ha'adam who does them shall live. The Torah doesn't say a Jew, it says Adam, a man, meaning any man, including non-Jews. The very same word used to exclude non-Jews in one Talmudic source is used to include non-Jews in another. Clearly, a simplistic reading of this passage won't suffice. Rav Yisrael Lifshitz, in his commentary to Ethics of Our Fathers, pushes back forcibly against any insinuation that the Talmud views non-Jews as inferior or subhuman. He starts his essay by writing, this is a mitzvah to publicize, denoting the importance of this subject. The Mishnah writes, beloved is the man who was created in the image of God. If the Talmud considers non-Jews to be animal-like, in what way are they created in the image of God? Writes Rabbi Lifshitz. The Torah refers to the Jewish people as a treasure among nations. Not much of a compliment if the nations are viewed as intelligent primates, he points out. Furthermore, he writes the non-Jews have a portion of the world to come, and as such are spiritually significant. This is sourced from the Gemara and logic. The verse in Psalms says, God is just in all his ways and righteous with all his creations. Obviously, if God is righteous to all his creations, they all have an opportunity to achieve the world to come. Rabbi Lifshitz then cites the achievements of individuals who benefited society greatly, such as the Chassid Edward Jenner, who developed the smallpox vaccine, Sir Francis Drake for bringing the potato to Europe, Gutenberg for inventing the printing press, and others. It is inconceivable, he argues, for these people not to be rewarded by God for their achievements. Returning to the contradiction of the Talmud regarding the term Adam referring to non-Jews, Rabbi Lifshitz offers the following approach. He writes, there is an advantage to both a person born into the Jewish tradition and one who is not. A Jew who has access to the rich, beautiful tradition of divine wisdom, the Torah. However, having access to such a tradition is also a disadvantage because the wisdom and morality contained therein are there for the taking. Someone who must go through a journey of searching and discovery to come to a moral lifestyle has put in more effort and likely feels a strong personal connection to their lifestyle as a result. Therefore, when using the term ha'adam, or a man as a reference to humanity in general, the Talmud associates this with any person, Jew or Gentile. However, the term Adam as a proper noun is specifically a reference to the Jewish people. The reason for this is because Adam is also the name of the first human being. Just as Adam was created by God and could take no credit for his existence, a Jew should not take credit for the spiritual knowledge, as this is a gift handed to him by tradition. A Jew defines themselves by how they choose to use that knowledge. To summarize, absolutely nothing derogatory is meant by the Talmud, and in its references to non-Jews, it is merely a distinction between the accomplishments of people from different traditions. Rabbi Yechezkel Landau introduces his work Noda B'Yehuda with a letter demanding Jews deal honestly with non-Jews and respect them. He ends his letter by pointing out any derogatory statement regarding non-Jews found in authentic Jewish sources should be assumed to be referring to immoral pagans and idol worshippers exclusively. So that's like the Meiri. Rav Shimshon Hirsch one of the outstanding Jewish leaders of the 19th century, wrote the following: "The truth is that the attitude of Judaism towards all other religious faiths and all human intellectual pursuits differs basically from the attitude of other religions. Judaism is probably the only religion that doesn't declare there is no salvation outside myself, that happily welcomes any intellectual or moral advance, no matter what its origin. The words of the Jewish prophets look with firm assurance to the ever-growing, ever-spreading spiritual and moral ennoblement, not only of the Jews, but of all mankind. Judaism is probably the only religion that does not presume to reign supreme over all other religions. Judaism perceives itself as an instrument working for all mankind, but not as a dictate to be obeyed by all men on earth. It welcomes any human spiritual, ethical advance brought about by other religions or faiths." When considering all of this, Judaism emerges as a shining example of tolerance and acceptance of people of different persuasions. That the Jewish people have been arguably the greatest victims in history of hate and prejudice is a uniquely tragic irony. We long for the day when all the nations of the world will realize that God's name is associated with you and they will be in awe of you. Now, everything was in there except he did say speak derogatorily. He did say that. He didn't exactly, he didn't really go into the Lashon Hara thing, though. He did say you're not allowed to speak derogatorily about them. Yeah, but what was that? Was that Eleanor Roosevelt, that quote about like simple people, foolish people or simple people talk to each other about people. The more elevated talk about events, and the refined speak about ideas, something like that.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah. Because a lot of people say, what will you talk about if you can't speak Lashon Hara? There's nothing to talk about, but
right.
you
Rabbi
could talk about
Kashmiri,
it.
on Sundays, we're learning with a cousin of mine in Israel. And I feel terrible that I can't name the rabbi she's talking about, but it's a deep dive into Lashon Hara and what it means. Okay. And according to this, I think, mystical rabbi, Lashon Hara almost like rules the world. In other words, if Jews speak Lashon Hara, the world degenerates into evil and terrible things happen. And when they don't, it elevates the world. And this, Tamar Schwartz, is that who she's talking about? Okay. And
when
anyway,
you say your cousin, is that the one I know?
Sandy's. Sandy's. No.
It's not Sandy.
Betsy's my sister-in-law. Yeah.
No, it wasn't Sandy. I'm saying Sandy. I met Sandy. She used
her
to be
daughter.
Oh, it's her
Sandy
daughter.
Oliver Shalom's daughter.
Yeah.
Yona.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, there were two I think you met, Yona and Rivka, but this is Yona. She's living in Israel now, and this is very scary. It means that Jews, their speech seems to rule the world. In other words, if they have Lashon Hara, that's why we got the Holocaust, because the world degenerated. I mean, this is too much responsibility here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I know. There, especially when you're reading mystical stuff, that can happen. I remember, I think this was like in the 80s, the early 80s, or maybe a little bit earlier, that our mashgiach at Itri, the yeshiva that we were at, he used to give these Tuesday night Musar schmoozes. And whenever you left them, you were just like, what is the point? There's no, yeah. And one of the things that came up is what the consequence of wasted time is. The consequence of wasted time. And it was just like, oh my gosh, when it elaborates on that. And you just, whenever these kind of things happen, you have to here's the problem. We don't see the value of the positive things that we do. So when you're talking about the negative thing, it's like just that negative thing, like in a vacuum, but and apart, but it's never in a vacuum and apart. And so if you're talking about a universe in which all of the good that we do is fully realized, then in context, these things are not as frightening and devastating. But it's sort of unfair that we're just kind of elaborating and getting a glimpse behind the curtain of this one negative thing. We have no perspective. We don't have context for all of it. And so you have to be careful because there's so many of them. Like I remember my kids, like any like in if when it in yeshiva, the boys are told about how wrong it is, not just to, let's say, have a girlfriend or talk with girls, but even to see women, even to just see women, gaze upon a woman. So even that is so terribly destructive. And when you see it all played out, you could again feel like there, what is the point? The minute I walk outside the door, I'm already doomed because there's no way I can overcome the devastation that has just been caused because I walked into the street and there was a woman there, as a man. So there was even our mashgiach Rav Yoel Schwartz, a blessed memory. He said that it's possible when you go into the center of town in Jerusalem that if you find yourself in the center of town in Jerusalem, you may have to throw yourself in front of a bus and be killed rather than to continue the terrible, terrible destruction that you're just being there, as men in a place where there's women. So you get after a while, you sort of get used to the idea that it is playing its role, but that we have to always remember that there is context. And in order for us to take this completely in context, we also have to be willing to do a similar thing to all the positive things that we do. And just like they can take what appears to be, moment of our life and characterize it as so destructive, imagine all those moments that are the opposite. As Rav Nachman of Breslov says, if you believe you can destroy, then you must also believe that you can rebuild.
Well, yes, that was the point.
Yeah,
you do have the power to build by being righteous, right?
Yeah. Okay.
At least you don't have to throw the woman under the bus.
No, he did not suggest that. That was a good point that you're making.
Well, in a way, when women are totally covered up because of what men aren't allowed, I mean, that's
the hijab.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's another way to solve it, I guess. Okay.
So there in Israel, it's not uncommon when you're in the like the more Haredi areas, it's not uncommon for people to switch seats on the buses so that there's only women in one section, only men. In other words, that's not an official thing. They're not allowed to have an official thing like that in Israel on any kind of public thing. But you'll see like a woman will come over and she'll say, could you move over there? And then we'll be over here, just the women, and you guys can be over there. And
okay.
Yeah. Okay. So he prohibited us that we not bear a grudge, even if we do not pay him back. So this last time we were talking about the mitzvos connected to feeling. So this really does seem to be about feeling. He prohibited us that we not bear a grudge, even if we do not pay him back. And that is that we remind him of the sin. And that is that we remind him of the sin that the sinner did. Here, so I just want to make sure I get the. Right. So apparently this is a speaking violation. That if we articulate that we that if we speak in a way that articulates that we bear a grudge, that would be a violation of this. To where does the strength of grudge bearing extend? If one said to another, "Lend me your spade," but he did not lend it to him, and the next day the other said to him, "Lend me your sickle," and he said to him, "Here it is. I'm not like you, who did not let me do not lend me your spade. Hence it is stated, you shall not take a grudge." So it is speech related. It does seem to be speech related. But in this case, the speech is articulating a feeling. But this was part of what we were talking about last time, what I was speaking to you about last time, which is that for almost all of these, what we're saying is do not act like a person who is bearing a grudge. Do not act like a person who hates their brother. Do not act like a person who is jealous. Do not act or do act like a person who loves the other person like themselves. That really what we're ultimately policing here is action, even if it's sometimes just words, but action, and not simply something that is in your heart. Although, again, whenever you see treatments of these subjects, they do go on to say that this is where it's meant to end. In other words, the reason that these things are prohibited or promoted is because of that feeling, and that feelings do matter, but it's just you're not going to get judged on a feeling alone. You're only going to get judged if it leads to some kind of action. Okay, now we are on to mitzvah 306. He prohibited us that we not take the nest at the time of the snare, the mother and the young. This is another example of how they chose to translate this in such an annoying way, but they want to keep it literal. So you are not supposed to take the nest of a bird while you're hunting for them. If you're hunting and there's a mother over her chicks, you're not supposed to, at this point, it sounds like you're not supposed to take the nest, but what it means is the objects of the nest. And this negative commandment is rectified by a positive commandment. That is, you must surely send away the mother, and then you can take the young for yourself. And anytime it is no longer possible to send it away and to fulfill the positive commandment in it, such as the mother died before she was sent away, then he is lashed. The regulations of this commandment have already been explained at the end of Chulin. So again, this is talking about a negative commandment that has a positive fix. There's a series of those kind of mitzvahs. One, the most famous of them, is theft. If somebody steals something, then the way they repair that is by returning it. So that's called lav hanitak la'aseh, a negative commandment that is like connected to a positive commandment. So here, you want to take these chicks. The mother is there. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to shoo her away. Um, I've done this before, and I don't know how it works every time this happens, but in my circumstance, when I did it, the mother flies away, but she doesn't fly entirely away. She flies away from you, but she's still watching what you're doing. So you'd have to say that there's something about her being right there when you take them, as opposed to being far away when you take them. That somehow that's different. Exactly how that's different, um, I don't know. I mean, you could remember that movie Das Boot? It was a German movie with English subtitles about this these it was during World War II.
U-boats, yeah.
Yeah, those U-boats, the Americans and Germans, and the Americans hit with a torpedo. They hit a German U-boat, and then they're close enough to watch with horror what happens to those sailors, and it sickened them. Um, Typically, this is not the case when you're in a submarine. When you fire at it, you don't see the carnage. Apparently, I have been in a submarine at the Museum of Science and Industry, but not one in the water, and certainly not during a war. But so maybe it's something like that if she can, if she's watching it, but still, why should it matter if she's right next to you and she's watching it, or she's up in a tree somewhere and she's watching you? And I am certain from my experience that if that happened on that occasion, it happens every time that the mother flies, but she doesn't fly entirely away. She's watching you. Um, yeah. So this is life. I mean, we kill things when we eat. And this notion that there's somehow a moral way to do it, it is, I mean, there is an intuitive agreement with that, but it just, in some ways, it's absurd. But I know I feel it. I would not want any animal or bird or anything, even mice, when I catch mice. I don't want them to suffer any more than they have to. But if you're in a culture that eats animals, at some point you're giving up on the empathy that you have for these creatures. You're supposed to have empathy, but up to a certain point. I was just watching the other day, I was watching a documentary about um, these people in Louisiana. They make like jambalaya and gumbo and stuff like that. So you see this guy, he has like a giant like tub of crawfish, and he dumps them into a cauldron, a giant cauldron that has all these vegetables and everything else in it. And they're all alive when they initially go in. And I'm watching the guy's expression when it's happening. And he just keeps on going, oh, look how good this looks. This looks oh, this is going to be good. This is, but that's, and if you have lobster, which we don't, but, when you see how they prepare a lot of animals, they're scalding them to death or whatever. That's part of the way they make it, and so at some point there is a breakdown. Their empathy goes up to this point, and then you're supposed to develop like a thick skin and go ahead and do whatever comes next. I have seen people when they kill an animal, they'll pause for a moment and thank the animal for its life that it gave up for them so that they could get nourishment. So that seems to be the way some cultures try to bridge this divide. They are unapologetically carnivores, but they still want to demonstrate that there's empathy and a sense of the dignity of the animal, the life, and the value of the life that they had. I remember when I was teaching at Or Sameach there was like a summer break, and during the summer break, you're just giving all sorts of classes that were just supposed to be fun classes or interesting classes. So I knew somebody who was a shoichet and invited him to come and shecht a chicken so that all the students could see how shechita was done. And there were some people that were protesting. They just thought that was so wrong, that we didn't have to kill this chicken. We're just doing it to see how shechita is done. It seems wrong. But I talked to them, and they grudgingly agreed to be present when it happened. And after it happened, there was nobody who felt that it wasn't a valuable experience. A big part of the experience was recognizing what actually goes into me eating meat or chicken. In other words, that a life is given up, and the kind of gratitude that you have for your food, and also a recognition of how important that food is, comes from the fact that it came from a life, that something gave up its life for it. And we typically don't have that experience because we're removed from the unpleasant parts. But yeah. All righty. I am grateful that we got a chance to learn together today, and I look forward to us doing it together tomorrow.
Sounds good.
At 11 o'clock. All right. Be well, guys.
Thank you. You should be grateful that I didn't bring up the Ola. Okay.
Bye-bye. Okay. Well, don't worry. We got it every day in Daf Yomi, Lois. Every day.
Okay.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.